Y uno de los analistas que ha estado con nosotros y que nos lleva advirtiendo de esto, sobre todo por el comportamiento técnico, que era el que más anticipaba este movimiento, ¿no? El análisis, ya saben que a nivel técnico pues las señales eran muy alcistas, mientras que a nivel macroeconómico y fundamental siguen siendo bastante bajistas, pero el técnico está predominando y está rompiendo, está cada vez mostrando nuevas señales que justifican este rally. Y hoy vamos con nuestro invitado, como todos los jueves, Jay Kaeppel, quien nos ha traído esto desde hace semanas. Jay Kaeppel, Senior Research Analyst at sentimenttrader.com. How are you, Jay? Thank you for coming.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back.
Well, I was saying in Spanish that since some weeks ago, you told us that the rally was starting to evolve and that we could be bullish for these weeks. And we are getting it, so we are seeing this IP right now getting higher and higher. And even if the Fed says that they are going to raise more the rates until 5.6% this year, the indexes keep going higher. So what do you think about this, and also about the VIX that has fallen to a very low level, which seems to be raising concerns, but also history suggests that this happens during bull markets?
Right. So, yeah, well, so far so good with the market. You know, I like the rally, but they always say trees don't grow to the sky, so I'm sure we'll get a pullback here sometime. But the first chart that I have today, you mentioned the VIX index. So the VIX basically measures volatility in the market. And historically, when the market makes a sharp decline and a bottom, it's almost always it almost always coincides with a spike higher in the VIX index. So people put together a high VIX reading with a market bottom. So when the VIX starts to fall to a low level, people instinctively say, well, if a high VIX is good, then a low VIX must be bad. And that shows partly why it's so important to quantify data. So the first chart that I have today is actually courtesy of one of my colleagues at Sentiment Trader, Dean Christians. And Dean did a study, and what he found is that when the VIX index was at a 2-year low and was below 14%, which is on the low end of the historical range. On the top end of the chart, the red dots, you can see they typically correspond with an ongoing bull market. They very rarely mark a top. So, and also the numbers on the bottom, the performance numbers, a little weakness right away sometimes, but going out 6 months to a year, usually the market is higher. So the low readings of the VIX right now is something that we have on the bullish side of the ledger, despite the fact that so many people seem to be wringing their hands about it.
Very interesting, Jay. And another cautious note that you write for us is that the stock market is entering a less favorable seasonal time of the year. As they say, sell in May and go away, but May and June was quite bullish, at least as of today. What do you think about this?
Well, so the long-term tendency for the stock market is to show weakness during the middle of the year. That's where that phrase sell in May came from. And the second chart that I have on the top shows the annual seasonal trend for the S&P 500 index. And basically, if you looked at the yearly performance across 12 months over the last 30 to 50 years for the S&P and you took the average, this is what it would look like. And you can kind of see in the middle there between trading day of the year 109, which was a few days ago, and trading day 197, which is about the middle of October, there's typically some weakness in the market. And so with the market being so strong right now, what this suggests to me is that all these people that are all of a sudden getting bullish, it's the perfect time for the market to go, maybe we'll just go sideways, chop around for a while. So, and the bottom part of that chart, I included that because basically, to put it in perspective, if you had bought and held the S&P 500 index only during this particular period that's in the red box, every year for the last 7 years, your total gain right now would be 8%. That's it, which is not much. So, and you can see it varies from year to year. But if you held all the rest of the time of the year, the gain since 1952 is a little over 15,000%. So we put this down as a potential headwind, not really as a sell signal, but just something that may see the market slow down in the months ahead.
First question that may create a pullback during these months, again to allow the indexes to recover in the next year. And as you said about the bullish scenario, there are right now from the AAII members, the American Association of Individual Investors, 45.2% bullish this week. So we are getting the market is getting more and more bullish, as you say, yeah. And another question about the indicator. You have a corporate insider velocity indicator that measures the 4-week change in insider buying versus selling. And what is it telling us?
Right. So the reason I included the third chart, it's looking at the consumer discretionary sector, and for two reasons. Number one, it tends to do pretty well in a bull market, and I think we're in a bull market now. And also with the potential for a seasonal headwind, we want to look for indexes that can, or sectors that can perform well even during that time. So what we found with this one, this indicator of ours, the corporate insider velocity, measures the 4-week change in insider buying and subtracts the 4-week change in insider selling. And the goal is to identify significant shifts in buying and selling of insiders. And so on that third chart, we see that when that indicator spikes, where the red dots appear, historically, that sector has done fairly well. In fact, if we look at the win rates at the bottom, even starting from a month to 2 months in, the win rates are pretty high. So we're hoping that this sector will hold up very well and show some gains in the months ahead, regardless of what the overall market does.
Keep an eye on the consumer discretionary sectors. And also another sector to talk about is the utility sector that is making new 52-week highs, the 100-day moving average for the percentage of utility members.
Yeah, so typically in a bull market, utilities are the last place anybody looks. They're kind of boring, they're kind of defensive, but two things, again, with that seasonal headwind, utilities historically have held up pretty well during that June to October timeframe compared to the overall market. And secondly, this indicator that's on the fourth chart, we look at the ticker XLU is an ETF that tracks a basket of utility stocks. And we look daily at what percentage of those stocks are making a 52-week high. Well, it's been very low, and we take the green line in this chart is the 100-day moving average. And what we found is that when that drops to a very low level, basically under 1%, that typically indicates that this sector is washed out. People have just given up and they've said, I'm done with this sector, I'm moving on to something else. And again, you know, if you look at the performance results, you look at where the red dots are and you look at the performance a year out, this tends to be a pretty good time. So if you're looking for big gains like you're getting in tech stocks right now, this is not the place to look. But if you're looking for something that might hold up pretty well and be pretty steady, and especially for income investors, then utilities may be a good place to look in the months ahead.
Actually, maybe because it's not overbought right now, as some
Right.
technology names we are seeing. Very interesting. Jay Kaeppel, Senior Research Analyst at sentimenttrader.com. As always, I recommend your platform to check these signals and everything that you share with us. Thank you for your time and thank you for coming to Negocios Televisión.
As always, thank you for having me on.
Despedimos a Jay Kaeppel de sentimenttrader.com y como siempre vamos a hacer ese resumen de lo que nos ha dicho en el día de hoy. Lo primero, gráfico 1, nos habla del índice VIX. Está en niveles muy bajos con respecto a lo que veíamos en los últimos meses. Fíjense los niveles que ha llegado el VIX en estos momentos. Sí que es verdad que en el día de hoy está rebotando y en el día de ayer también intentaba rebotar hasta otra vez los 14, 15 puntos. pero aún así en niveles bajos son los que ha llegado este año. Y dice que, bueno, que esto está relacionado también con mercados alcistas. Fíjense que en la gráfica que nos comparte dice que cuando el VIX está en esos niveles, pues suele coincidir que estamos en mercados bajistas. Eso sí, también nos alerta que en estos niveles también puede sugerir que puede venir un pullback pronto, puede venir algún tipo de retroceso en los índices próximamente, porque puede ser unos niveles donde la cobertura es mínima y donde próximamente la volatilidad podría incrementar debido a un nuevo escenario que nos está barajando o de nuevo a un evento que ocurriese. Así que un VIX que demuestra que el mercado es alcista, pero que también alerta sobre un potencial retroceso en los próximos días. De hecho, esta segunda opinión también la comparte con el segundo gráfico, donde dice que la estacionalidad a partir de este mes es menos favorable. Fíjense en el siguiente gráfico cómo podemos ver la estacionalidad. Vamos a ver si ahí está. Fíjense que en la gráfica de arriba, a partir de este mes, la estacionalidad empezaría a comportarse de forma lateral para los índices, así que dice que a partir de aquí pues podríamos empezar a ver en verano mayores retrocesos o un índice que consolide un tiempo. Dice que no todo sube en vertical, dice Jay Kaeppel, y que por tanto espera también un retroceso que podría venir en estos próximos meses, estas próximas semanas, disculpen. Si miramos también una señal que nos comparte en el tercer gráfico, nos habla del Corporate Insider Velocity, que es un indicador para el sector de consumo discrecional. Y dice que este indicador lo que muestra es la compra que están realizando los insiders, los dueños de las compañías. Y dice que históricamente, cuando este indicador da esa señal, históricamente es alcista para los mercados. Así que dice que, bueno, que aunque hay algunas señales como la estacionalidad y ese VIX en niveles mínimos que podrían alentar a que dentro de poco veamos un retroceso porque no todo sube en línea vertical, que a pesar de eso las señales de la tendencia a medio plazo son positivas en base a estos indicadores, ¿no? Si miramos, de hecho, el último gráfico nos comparte una idea que es el sector utilities. Puede ser una idea a lo mejor un poco aburrida, sobre todo para los inversores que ahora mismo están únicamente enfocados en tech o en consumo discrecional, como hemos visto anteriormente, pero dice que se ha activado una señal según este indicador que básicamente mide el porcentaje de nuevos máximos de 52 semanas dentro del índice, y dice que el sector de utilities está mandando una señal que podría ser favorable para el sector, un sector aburrido pero que podría comportarse bien en los próximos meses, por si lo quieren vigilar. Lo trae Jay Kaeppel en su análisis del jueves. Este ha sido el resumen de Jay Kaeppel, Senior Research Analyst de sentimenttrader.com. Y nosotros nos movemos directamente a